evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this live session on Confluence for beginners. Our goal today will be to just go over some basic concepts and ideas that show up in Confluence to make sure that we can be successful using it and kind of we know what's going on when we first log into it. I'll give folks a couple minutes to join us. I did put a poll in the YouTube chat, and I'll talk more about ways we can interact as we go. But just curious how frequently or how much folks here have used Confluence before. I tend to use it all the time for a couple of reasons that I'll talk about as we go. But this is intended for beginners, so it's good to see at least one of us has not used it yet. I will also just shout out, please use the chat to put in questions. If there are particular topics you are curious about or have heard about, please let me know. I've got a whole presentation plan that covers the basics, but this is supposed to be helpful and useful for all of you. So if there are specific things you want to hear about or think would be useful, let me know and I'll be happy to weave them in. Also, it's a bit early for me, so I'll be drinking some coffee as we go on this one. See how many folks we got. Up to 8. Awesome. I'll give folks another few minutes just to see them trickle in. We tend to see folks popping in the middle as well, which is totally fair. All right, team. We are going to get started. With most of my sessions, you'll see me do this, but we'll have some slides and we'll have a lot of hands-on. I will go back and forth. So I'll do a couple of slides and we'll go into Confluence. We will be using Confluence Cloud Premium. So just as a heads up, if you're following along or if you're using Confluence at work, we're on the premium tier of cloud. The biggest difference you'll see is this will let me use the Atlassian intelligence and the Rovo agents. If you're on free, you won't get those things. And if you're on standard, you don't get those things. So that'll be the biggest difference you notice. I'll do my best to call out any others. The other thing is I'm not using any marketplace apps. So this is the most vanilla, the most standard Confluence I could find. Quick way of introduction. My name is Rob. I've been using Confluence since about 2013. And I started using Confluence when I got a job in San Francisco. And I sat down, I said, where is the knowledge base? And someone pointed at Confluence, said, that's it. And they walked off. And that was my training. There was no orientation on it. I did not have someone like this show me the steps. They didn't even show me how to log in. They just said, that's the logo. And they walked off. And that's why I do these trainings. I think it's really important for us to understand the basics of how tools work, especially when they are part of our job. I had to go in, I wanted to go into the knowledge base to learn how to do my job. I couldn't do that. Then as I started using it, I wanted to contribute to it. So I had to figure out how do I make content for other people. And then eventually I ended up becoming an admin. That is a good call out, Anne. They just started deploying Rovo to standard. And I'll talk more about Rovo as we go. But I think I did see that email come through yesterday for me. But that's why we're here. I want to make sure that all of you and everyone you talk to has enough so when you start using Confluence, it's not painful. I can learn by doing, but not many people like that. So now we are on YouTube, which is great. I also do this professionally. I shifted my career to be a trainer and instructor. So you'll hear me talk about different ways you can help support what I do, but most importantly, use the chat. Use that to ask your questions. Use that to respond to the polls. You'll see me popping up on your YouTube chat. And I have up to 4 options I can put in those. So I'll end at 4 options. But just to kind of see what people think of topics or what you're wondering about. But also feel free to jump into chat just like Anne did and share information. If you have a tip you want to share, if you have something you want me to cover more of, or if you want me to back up or slow down, please let me know. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button. I do weekly updates, weekly videos, and I'm trying to spin out more of those on different Atlassian topics, so Jira and Confluence. And the easiest way you can support me is hit the like button on the video. That makes it easier for other people to find it. And also tells me you think this is useful, good information. So it's the best, most immediate feedback you can give me. And you can also save and share this. So again, if you find it useful, hit the like button, but also consider, is there someone else you work with, someone else you know who could benefit from this type of knowledge? There probably is, because I personally have never seen any group that really does like a Confluence training for workers. They just kind of assume you know it. Okay, our agenda. I will get through as much of this as I can and maybe some more. And again, if you have particular topics you want me to dig into, please let me know. Just drop a note in the chat. We'll start out just with what is Confluence and some basic concepts around it. And these are important. So when you are using Confluence or when you're looking up help online, you know what terms to search for and you know how to describe what you want. This for me was a big hurdle when I started because I didn't know the term space or what a restriction was or page templates. So I had to kind of Google around until I found it, and that was frustrating. So we'll start there. And then we'll go back and forth between talking about the concept and then going into Confluence Cloud Premium to see what that concept looks like. How do we navigate? How do we make a page? How do we use a template? So we'll just go back and forth between the concepts and the hands-on doing. Now we'll have a general scenario we use. We've just joined this company called JQuil Industries. The word JQuil is a bit of a joke. It's how I pronounce JQL or Jira Query Language. So if you see that word, I made it up. But it's my placeholder company. And we've been told we have to document onboarding in Confluence, but that's all we've been told. So this kind of mirrors my experience with Confluence. Go use it. And that was all I got. So we'll use that kind of as a lens. We're a raw beginner. We don't know anything about it as we go. So this question was already up in the poll, but how long have you been using or how much do you use Confluence? It looks like, actually, most of us use it all the time, which is awesome. But there are some of us in here who haven't used it yet or don't use it a lot. All completely fair, and I see some of the answers are switching around on me. Totally fine. I'll encourage the folks who have not used it yet to ask your questions. It can be hard in these kind of sessions, like, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to ask a silly question. Please drop it in there. One thing I will do is add, it's called a Q&A. You'll see this pop up in chat. I'll encourage you to put your question in the main chat so everyone can see it. However, if you click on drop your question here, it should be at the top of the chat bar. Only I will see it. So if there's a question you want to ask, but you don't want everyone to see it because you feel embarrassed, please put it in there. I'll check that box from time to time and just go through the question. So what is Confluence? When I first started using Confluence, I used the term knowledge base because that's just what I called the place we put all of our information. Confluence, though, is evolving into a different thing, more of a collaboration platform, but there's many ways to use it. At its core, it's just a virtual space to be the source of truth for information. This information could be policies. Hey, Evelyn. This information could be engineering documentation. This could be onboarding for new workers. It could be legal documents. It kind of, like, the type of content doesn't matter. It's just a container for all this stuff. I think of Confluence like a library. Confluence itself is the physical library building. And then everything I put in there is all my knowledge. Now, there's different ways it could be used. It could be solely a knowledge base, just somewhere we go to look things up. It could be a live collaboration platform where we're expected to go in together and work on things in real time. It could be externally facing for customers who purchase my marketplace app, or it could be just for my employees. It might even just be for a certain group of employees. Maybe only my legal team gets to use this copy of Confluence because it's super sensitive, or only my HR team. So there's no real wrong way to use it. The thing to keep in mind about using Confluence is your team should all understand why it's used and how to use it, just so everyone's on the same page. Now, if Confluence is the library, within the library we have rooms of books, and those rooms are called spaces. A space in Confluence is just a way to organize content. And there are different kinds of spaces or different uses for a space. One is just by project, and this is something I commonly used. My career was mostly in IT project management. So when we had a big new project, implement a new system, I might have a space that contained all the information about that project. Who are the team members? What are the documentation? Who are the vendors? What are the risks? All that kind of stuff. And then my team knew go to that space for all the information about that system. You also, though, might have spaces done by department. Maybe your human resources team has a space, and that's everything they need. Or maybe it's by a process. Onboarding. New workers are joining. There's a whole space just with that. How it's used can differ, but again, we want to make sure our teams understand that why we're using it by project, and then because it's by project, what should go in there. So this kind of sets expectations with my team. Oh, when I go to the marketing team space, I know at the top I'll see who are the team members, in the middle I'll see their big projects, and at the bottom I'll see something else. So just having standardization is very important when we use any system, especially something like Confluence, just so people know what to expect in these spaces or organizational groups or rooms of our library. And then in a space, just in our library, in a room, we'd have books or magazines or other things. In Confluence, we have content. The most basic piece of content, or the stereotypical one, is a page. And this looks kind of like a Word document, but it contains information, usually text, but also images. It might have a macro connections to other things, but it's what most people think of when they think of a knowledge base or Confluence as a page of information. Now, pages can be organized into a hierarchy. So just like in our library, you go in and there's a shelf and it's organized so you can easily find things. Our content hierarchy, and on the left, we'll see this in a moment when we jump in, will organize things visually so we can browse. That content hierarchy is very important because it's, when I jump into Confluence, it's how I can navigate things. I can also search and skip around, but if I'm just browsing, how things are displayed visually is super important. Now, pages do have templates, and we'll talk about those in our next section, but those are very helpful because we don't have to start with a blank page. They don't, however, organize well chronologically. So that's where we have another type of content called a blog post. These don't show up in our page tree. They show up underneath it. I don't know why they're so different, but I use them more for point-in-time information. So just calling out that there is a thing called a blog that can be useful. I use blogs for things like team updates, for event notices to the team, or for like a weekly review. And I use pages for basically everything else. So it's just a different way of storing information. This means we're going to jump into Confluence. A quick reminder, if you're liking this, just hit the like button. It's a little thumbs up under me. And also you'll notice some QR codes down here. These are other ways to support me. The one under my head goes to some learning courses that I have. And I'll drop a link to that too in the chat. And these are all recorded. And I do have a discount code that'll get you 15% off any of my courses. All right. This is Confluence Cloud. Again, we are in a premium instance, so the biggest difference, I'll have Atlassian Intelligence and Rovo. If you're on a free, no Atlassian Intelligence, no Rovo, and no permissions. And standard will have permissions and now Rovo. So that's the AI agents. What we're looking at is my home screen, or the For You page. And this page has a lot of great stuff. Right in the middle, it's keeping track of the last things I was on. Now, I use Confluence quite a bit. I tend to forget what page I was editing or looking at. So this is a great place to check just to see, hey, what was I doing yesterday or last week? Or, it's telling me even when I was last there. Oh, 10 minutes ago, I was on this overview. At the bottom, I've got like a kind of a feed. Am I following individuals? What's popular content? Why is tan better than Manila? Very, very good page on this color opinion. If there's any announcements and like team calendars. So this is a good starting point. Up along the top, I've got a search bar, which I don't know what's going on with the UI. That looks kind of silly. But search is another thing that no one showed me how to use. It's very straightforward. You can just hit the / or the question mark key on your keyboard, and then type in, what are you looking for? And it looks like we found some kind of interesting bug. It should not look quite like this. It should be displaying what I'm typing in. But this is a cloud-based solution, so hopefully they fix it soon. You'll see that the search options are just narrowing down. But importantly, I can expand my search. So if my team uses other products from Atlassian, for example, Jira for work management, I can look in there as well. So this is kind of a global search. But importantly, I can filter down what I'm searching. This would have been really useful for me to know. I could say, when was it last updated? So when did someone last edit it? What space is it found in? I think it was in the support team. That'll help me find it more easily. Or even who contributed to it, who made edits or created it. So this ability to quickly search is really important. One of the biggest frustrations is finding things in Confluence, especially for bigger organizations, just because there'll be a lot of stuff in there. So please show your team that. The other thing you need to know is there's an advanced search. So if you open up the search and hit enter, it will give you even more options for filtering and looking through different types of things. Rodney, good to see you, my friend. All right, on the left, I've got a whole bunch of other kind of navigation menus. I won't go through each of these in detail, but there's a couple important ones. You can star items. This is like a favorite or a bookmark. So I frequently star pages I use a lot, and I'll show you how to do that when we start looking at pages. Spaces have the same ability to put a star. So there'll be a lot of spaces that sometimes thousands or tens of thousands in a big company that's been using it a while. So it's very important that we know how to go in and mark the things we frequently use, because this will make it easier for me later to go find it. We can't star things for other people, but we can star them for ourselves and then give them a hyperlink. Just kind of right click and copy link address and share that with folks if we have useful stuff. And then our recents menu just keeps track of where we were. So similar to that For You page I mentioned. Now your company may use something called the Company Hub. This is the best description is a global space. It's a space everyone can see and access. If your team uses this, they're probably using it for just general information. But it's a great resource to have because it makes it very easy to find frequently used things that everyone can access or everyone needs. Frequently, we see things like how to enter an IT ticket in here, or we see things like upcoming team or upcoming company announcements or events. So if you've got that Company Hub, it shows up on the left. It's by default called Company Hub. I renamed the one here, though. So your company can change the name. So if you see something interesting with this little building icon, that's the Company Hub, always worth checking out, and also regularly dropping in on. Here's a list of spaces I've starred. I could also click View All Spaces and search through them. Over time, you'll find yourself probably going to the same few spaces, which is why I click the little star, which is this little icon over here, just to kind of bookmark them. But we can also search through, I just want to find support spaces. Now, once you open a space, the left-hand side changes a bit. And this is that content hierarchy I mentioned. This is the shelves in the room. These are the pieces of content in the space. And they'll be here, actually they're organized, which is a surprise because usually my demo is not. Pieces of content can have children. So we'll notice Team Policies has strategic policy under it. So when I see this little drop down, it means there's something underneath it. And this is how we can structure or organize our content. Now, a big part of using Confluence is thinking through how should things be organized, and then how should they be visually displayed to make it easy. So when someone like Evelyn comes in here, it should visually guide Evelyn through all the content they need. Typically, the parent, or the thing higher up, is broader, and the child, the thing under it, is more specific. So again, in this example, all policies would be the top page, and then beneath that would be each individual policy. Now, once I open a page, we'll see the content in the middle, and I'll find one with more content that's more interesting. So this one appears to mostly be, text, some tables, other information. In the bottom right, if we've got Atlassian Intelligence, we have like a summarize button, and we can interact with the page there. But we also have detailed information about it. So if I need to know who created it, how many people have viewed it, how long is it, etc., all of that lives under that little I button in the bottom right. And then up in the top, if I have edit access, I can edit. And I can also easily share just by pushing on share. So thank you, Rodney, for calling that out. I don't use this particular button all that much. I tend to just copy the hyperlink and give that to somebody. This does something very similar. The big difference here, if we add in someone's name, we can also send a message to them and notify them. So they'll get an email saying, hey, check out this page and whatever information I choose to add. So share gives us a little bit more than just slacking someone a hyperlink. We can include a personal message as to why. We can also include groups. So groups are created by our administrators, but maybe I want to share this with I'll just pick one at random, all the people in the administrators group. I can do that here. So instead of having to find them individually in email or something, I can just type in administrators. They all get the notification on what's going on. Tushar, glad you're here. All right, going to shut down this poll because we're teleporting back into Confluence. We're going this way. It looks like 60% of us have used Confluence, they say, all the time, but everyone else is relatively new. So not in a while, once or twice, or not at all. So we got a pretty good mix, which is great to see. Now, I'm going to drop another poll. This one's about templates. And just to clarify, I'm referring to page templates. Because there are other types of templates in Confluence, but typically when we talk about Confluence, we're referring to page templates. Now, page templates, and I'll just start calling them templates, just make it easy, are pre-formatted pages. So when we think of writing content and creating content in Confluence, it can be hard because you're staring at a blank page. Templates give us a starting point. And Confluence out of the box, so when you first turn it on, has something like 140 templates that just exist. So even if you started Confluence today, you would have a very large number of mostly useful templates. Now I say mostly useful because there are so many in here, many of these you'll never use. For example, there's one about a career development plan. I personally have never used that particular template. That's okay. Someone else will find it useful. Now, page templates are managed by someone who has access called Space Administrator or Space Admin. So I won't dig too deep into creating or managing them here, but keep in mind if you're using a template and every time you have to change it a little, or you really wish that you could have a different template, you can talk to your Space Administrator and they can make a new one for you, or they can edit existing ones to fit your needs. So this is a really important thing to remember. The system will start out set up a certain way, but in many cases, you can go in and change how it works. Templates are a very big one because if you're making, say, policies or a lot of API documentation or a lot of how-to articles, meeting notes are a big one for me. I'll go through and I'll tweak that template to fit my specific need. Now they show up in a couple of spots. There's a button in the user interface, the UI menu, just called templates. And that will show you every template you have access to. And also when you make a page, you'll get a menu to select a template. So you can just browse a list of them. One thing to keep in mind is templates live in a single space. So that means if I'm in the heen.tech space, there'll be a list of templates that are unique to heen.tech. That same list of 140 or so standard templates exists in every space, but they're all separate templates, so like copies of each other. So that can be really frustrating. You might be in one space, you're working in the engineering space, there's a great template you love, then you go to the support space, doesn't exist. So that's a source of frustration we just have to be aware of. I'll show you a trick for accessing templates from other spaces. Evelyn's got a great question. Can you create your own templates? In general, no. However, if you have that space administrator role, you can make templates. So most people, most of the time, won't have that access. But someone called a space administrator, and I'll show you how we can find who this person is, or you might have to reach out to like information technology at your organization for help. And I swear that question wasn't a setup because we're going to talk very quickly about what that looks like. Now, as a space admin, you can go in and up at the top, meeting notes template is something that I created. It's a custom template. And at any time, I can go in and change it. And so every month or so, I would go in and I would just tweak my templates because they're intended to speed me up. They're intended to help me out. So if I feel like they could be better or have a different section on them or whatever, I'm going to go do that. So next time I use it, it's easier. It makes my job, my life a little bit simpler. We're going to take a look at some templates. A quick reminder, hit the like button if you like the content or the video or me or the background. Got 4 likes and about 33 folks in here, which is awesome. So we're going to go right back to where we were. And what we're going to do is just add a new policy page. So here I am on my team policies. To create a page, I can do it in two spots. I can click this create button right here in the middle, or I can click these little pluses. The thing to keep in mind is when you hit the button, it makes a new page underneath whatever you have open. So I'm on team policies. When I hit plus, it's going to make a new page underneath team policies. And we can see it here, it's untitled. It is also a draft. This means only I and my admins can see it. I am really, really bad about creating a page and not publishing it. So please don't be me. Please make sure you're pushing publish when you're ready. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is give this page a title because I'm going to forget to do that. Maybe I'll write a PTO policy. And then at the bottom, I've got this little bar that contains some templates. And you'll see as I mouse over these, the stuff on the screen changes. So this is just showing me if I click on this, this is what the template looks like. It's like a preview. There is, however, an all templates button, and this is what I prefer to use. Now, the trick I mentioned about looking in other spaces, if I click on this dropdown, this lets me look at templates in HeanTech. Now, I have to have access to the space, and we'll talk about access in a little bit. But if I know that HeanTech has a really great, awesome template that's just mind-blowing, I have to change the dropdown, and now I can go use it. So that can be really frustrating. As we move through Confluence and move between spaces, we might have different templates. This is one way to get access to other templates. I can also search through templates. So I was looking for policy things. Oh, I don't have a policy. Let me look for HR things. Let me look for human things. And you can see down at the bottom, it's showing me 15 of 140 templates have it. Oh, hey, Frank. Yeah, everyone is late today. I'm waking up early, team. Where have you all been? For those of you who are new to my sessions, there's a number of folks who are recurring, like Rodney, Frank, Tushar. So thank you all, but also thank you all new folks for joining. I also have a Discord server, which is live chat between these sessions. Please feel free to join us in there. It's not just about Confluence and not just for beginners. It's any Atlassian topic. So there's been a lot of interesting discussions around naming conventions or how do databases work or what do your cats look like? Because cats are always everywhere. But feel free to join us there in that link. You might have to use a personal email. Your work may restrict it if you're curious. But this is how I look for templates. We can also filter them with these buttons here. So just like I can star a page that's useful, I can click star on a template. And that will keep it under my templates so I can find it more easily. I'm just going to pick this top one, and I'll click on it, and that will put it on the page for me. And so as we can see, stuff has been added. This removes a lot of the thinking necessary to make a page. And now I can just add more about it. Maybe I'll change this to how to request PTO to make a bit more sense. There is some text on here, this grayish text. This will be deleted. It's called placeholder text. It's prompting me as the creator on what I can do. So I'm just going to add a couple of steps. Talk to your manager, submit your request, get it approved. I do have a lot of other editing options. Similar to like a word processor, I have things like text formatting, make it bold, italicize. One massive difference, I can't do fonts and I can't change font sizes. There are some marketplace apps that give you more options, but out of the box, I'm limited to what they call headers and then the formatting options we have. So that was one frustration when I joined. Honestly, over the years, I've kind of forgotten about that difference, and I've forgotten that fonts exist. Quick question from Frank on templates. Yes, there is. They call it promotion. I'll open up my templates menu again, which you can get to under more actions. So these three dots and then templates. And I got to get rid of that. Templates can be featured. So a space admin, the person who manages templates, they call it promoting them, and that puts it under the featured menu. So this global template and support how to were something my admin said, hey, folks will find this interesting. They made it featured. We also have options to change the text color or highlight text in a color, text alignments and lists. this little area here I call the fun stuff. I don't know if there's a name for it, but it does things like inserts a action item or Command K to do a link, adding attachments, so images, video files, that kind of thing. So think more multimedia. Lots of emojis, and this is something I'm not the best at, but I highly recommend folks use emojis in things like page names where you can, or just to help draw visual attention to things. It can depend on your company culture, but I have found this to be useful in drawing attention to different types of pages. For example, I might put the book at the start of my policy just to make it visually stand out more. Again, something I'm not the best at, but I've noticed when it's used can make things very helpful. We have layouts as well, and these are columns. So if I'm looking to have visual columns on the page, and I can have up to 5, which is an update from years past. I usually use 3 columns. I don't know what I would do with 5. The last menu, though, is called macros or elements. Now, these are important because they add a little bit extra to the page. They'll allow us to do things like add in a code snippet, add a divider, add a status lozenge, I think these things are called, or add more things to pages. Frank. Frank's kind of making fun of me because for my live training sessions, I used to put emojis at the start of the name, and apparently some calendars can't interpret that, so it just ends up inserting what appears to be Chinese characters instead of a smiley face. Okay. And it looks like, according to the poll, half of us have not used templates. So if you're using Confluence, definitely take a look at templates. They'll speed you up. They make your editor's life easier, but they also make your life as a consumer easier. So the next question is going to be, how well do you understand Confluence Access? And a 1 will be not at all, and a 4 is like you understand it very well. And this is all subjective. But it is an important topic, and it's the most frustrating thing. You'll get a link from someone saying, hey, here's our PTO policy, and you'll click on it, and nothing happens. It just says a screen saying you might not have access or this page does not exist. So huge source of frustration. We don't have to be super experts in Access as beginners, but we have to understand some basics about it so we know what questions to ask, or we know what to tell our admin when we go ask for help. And yes, Frank, there are variables in pretext. However, that all is done on the admin side, not on the end user side. Now, when we think of Access, it's like an onion. It has layers. That's why there's an onion on the screen. The highest level of access is having access to the instance or copy of Confluence. Now, this is acquired with a license. So, for example, I don't have access to Atlassian's Confluence. I don't have a license. So if I was given a link, nothing would happen. I'd get an error of some kind. There are a few exceptions to this. There is something called guest access, which gives very limited access to a space. So if you have a consultant or a contractor who is working on just one project, you can give them access just to one space at a time. There's also anonymous access, and this is opening up the page to anyone on the internet. This can be useful in cases like you have a knowledge base for your app that you're selling, or you have release notes you want the public to see. The thing to remember about anonymous access is it is anonymous. Anyone on the internet can get into that content. So once you have access to the instance, the next layer is the space. Spaces can be open, anyone can access them, or they can be more restrictive. Depending on the space and the needs of the space, this can differ. New hire onboarding is probably going to be wide open because you want everyone to see it. The legal team's space on, complex legal strategy is probably going to be locked down quite a bit, so only a few people can see it. At this level, we also have the ability to control it a little bit more granularly. For example, we can say everyone can see it, but you cannot make new content. Or we can say everyone can see it, and you can make new content, but you can't delete things. Or you can't comment. So depending on the space you're in, your access will differ and change. And this is another huge source of frustration. Frank will be in the support space and he can make pages, and then Frank will go to the engineering space and he can't make pages. And he'll come complain to you, why can't I do this? Confluence is broken, when really he doesn't have the access to do it. Now that access is controlled by a space administrator, the same person who can build templates. And we'll take a look at that when we jump into our next little hands-on section. Under the page, the last layer is called a restriction. And this is just a terminology difference that drives me nuts. Permissions are on the space level. Restrictions are on the content. So imagine our library. If the doors are locked, I can't get in. I don't have instant access. Within the library, some of the rooms might be open and some might be locked. There's expensive or rare books, they keep those locked up. And even then, there might be portions of the room that are controlled. I can look, but I can't touch some books because they're rare or old. Same thing here. I might be able to access the legal team space, but I can't edit anything. Or maybe I can access their space and I just don't see some pages because they're considered sensitive. So if you get a link to a page that you can't open, it might exist and you might just not have access. And that's where it's important to ask. There are some global permissions, so just be aware that your administrators have other controls. For example, the ability to create a space. Most people won't get this, but your admins can allow groups of people to do it. Anonymous access is also controlled there. So it's possible you can't turn on anonymous access because your admins have said, we don't want to risk it. So there's a lot of other permissions around what I just spoke about that help support everything that most people don't ever have to worry about because that's your admin's job. Now again, at the space level, we have some granular control. The screenshot we see here will look a bit different than when we jump into our demo, and I did this intentionally. They are updating how permissions work, finally, into what's called a role-based access control, and I'll dig up a link to a video explaining what that means. But you might see a slightly different view of them depending on if your company has opted into the new experience. But we do have the ability to control more granular things. For example, can you delete your own content? Can you add comments? Are you allowed to add attachments? So depending on the space, you might be more or less restricted in what you're doing. I think I found the video. Yes. Evelyn's asking around anonymous access or that public access. The entire instance does not have to be public. I'm trying to think of the easiest way. The permission has to be turned on, and then each space and each piece of content can be individually shared. So if you turn it on, it's not like everything in Confluence is exposed. It's only things that someone pushes, yes, share this one thing. However, it's very easy to accidentally share the wrong thing or share too much. So please keep that in mind. I won't talk too much about groups. Permissions versus restrictions, I'll go through this pretty quickly just so we can get more hands-on. Again, permissions apply at the space level. Restrictions apply at the content. And there's two restrictions. Anyone can view, only some can edit, and only specific people can view or edit. So I think of this first one as view only, and this bottom one is even more restrictive. Again, depending on my needs, note that the default is anyone can see and edit. So if you can get into the space, by default, when there's new content, you can see and edit it. So depending on what you're building, you may want to consider when you deploy it or how you restrict things. A quick coffee break for me. Just a reminder, please hit that like button. Super simplest way to support me. It takes half a second. Got about 30 folks, about 8 likes, which is amazing. Also, I'll encourage you to check out the link right under me. That goes to my learning platform, and there's a code. Just type in beginner to get 15% off. I do have a course that's 5 hours on everything you need to know about Confluence, so I highly recommend that if you're looking for a good starting point. So here is our how to request PTO page. And this is what we've created. I'm just going to push publish. And again, this is the step I tend to forget. If I don't publish this, other people won't be able to access and view it. When I publish it though, I have this option to change the access. Now, this is actually also a permission. So if you can't change this, you may not have the permissions to change restrictions. So that's another layer of frustration. I'll just click the edit pencil. And now I have that same option to share, but I can now expand what I can do. So I'm going to change this open to restricted. And now you'll see at the top, I can say Andrew can view this, or maybe he can edit it. And I want to provide what they can do. So this is how I can control who has this particular access. I'm saying only certain people can view or edit the page. And I'm going to allow Andrew and Carolyn to go in and edit it. Now that this icon has changed, it's the red lock, that tells me, hey, there's a restriction on here. And I can always come in and see who are these people. I can also change it. Maybe I don't want Andrew to edit anymore. Maybe he came in and did his job. I'm going to change it to can view. And so now Andrew could come in and see the page, but he can't touch it. But Caroline can still come in and edit it. And then I'll just publish. And visually up in the top right, I'll see this red lock. This is another good thing to be aware of. If someone's complaining they can't see a page that you can, go look at the page and click on share and just see what the restrictions are. And this will help you kind of figure out what's going on. Yes, Frank, inheritance does apply. So Frank's question relates to how the pages are set up or how the content is set up in the hierarchy. Parent pages can be restricted. I might say, only I can edit team policies, but everyone can view it. That view restriction will carry down. Everyone can view the children. Now, the children could be more restrictive. Another thing I could do, though, is I might go to this parent and say, you know what? I don't want everyone to be able to see this anymore. I need to change something about this. Maybe I need to find my admin group again. I'm going to say my admin group can view this parent. And I'll share this without notifying because I don't want to blow up any emails. So now team policies has that restriction. Only administrators can see it. But if I go down to its children are also now restricted. It says restricted by parent. I can make the children more restrictive because the parent's only a view restriction. I might say, you know what? I also only want Frank to be able to edit this particular page. I can click on this little link to go see the parent page, which is useful. And this is where restrictions get frustrating because the parent can be restricted. And maybe I can't change that. I can only say, I'm sorry, Frank, you can't see this page. I can't help you. You have to go to find an admin or help to find someone else. Now, if you don't know who your admin is, there's a super easy way to figure that out. I'm going to go to the space and then click on more actions. And I'm going to go to space settings. I happen to be an admin of this space. However, even if you're not an admin, you can open this up and you'll be able to find a space admin section. The screen will look a bit different. You won't have access to this analytics. But if I click on view all admins, any one of these people can help answer questions about the space. So space administrators or space admins both get extra permissions and access to go do things in the space. They can help with permissions. They can make templates. They can provide guidance. But I also expect that the space admins know a little bit more about what the space is for and can help answer questions on how do I use Confluence, those kind of things. In this case, I have a lot of space admins. But that's how I can figure out who the space admin is. And again, restrictions, so access controls to a particular page or piece of content, are inherited by parents. And so this is where it can get confusing with bigger, older pages. They've done a better job recently of helping us figure out where is the restriction coming from. Again, in this case of a child page, it's telling me, oh, this particular parent, it has that restriction. Frank, why do you have several parallel page trees at the root level? All right, folks. Quick shout out to my Discord community. The challenge Frank is referring to is a little bit more advanced, but we do discuss things like that over in Discord. So I'll encourage you to join us there. Completely free. You do have to have an account, but you can make a burner email. But it is a good group of about 230 folks chatting about all things Atlassian. And it looks like most of us, about half, don't understand Confluence Access very well, which is about what I expect, honestly. I still struggle with remembering the nuance and how they all operate. All right. And remember, there is that drop a question here box in your chat if you want to leave a question that other folks can't see immediately. I'll be happy to also take questions that way. I mentioned at the start that one big use case of Confluence is as a collaboration platform. And that's where there's a lot of different tools in the system that help us collaborate. So mostly curious, like when you're creating content, are you doing it just by yourself? Are you doing it with others? Are they in person? And I'll drop a poll in here. How do you create content? Is probably a better way to put it. Create content. Content. How do you typically create content? I'm limited just to 4 answers. So if you have a combination, I do some of these some of the time, some of the other time, just drop it in the chat. I personally tend to make it just by myself. I am not a good example or a good exemplar of using the collaboration tools in Confluence, and that is just my habit. I'm not saying it's good or bad, and I'm laughing because Confluence has a lot of great tools that help us collaborate. Now, there's different ways we can collaborate. The one that I use the most, though, is commenting. And this is where you can @mention someone. So it's similar to a Google Doc or a chat platform. Habana, good to see you. Rodney, whoops, wrong way. Rodney is on a podcast called The Jira Life, and he uses that to collaborate. He does. Now, comments for me are one of the most common. I'll talk more about why. But we also have collaborative editing. This is one that I'm starting to use a little bit more, where up to 10 people can jump into a single doc and work on it together. There's a new content type as well called a live doc that's intended to be more of a hands-on, everyone going in at once. And this is where you can see someone else's cursor and you can see what they're doing. So that's another way to do it. Even just sharing content, though, is a way of collaborating. So Confluence gives us different ways of getting other people involved in part of the action, so to speak. Now, collaborative editing can be very simple. When we're editing a page, there's a specific URL. It has the word edit in it. And if someone else has edit access to the space that I'm in, I can share that with them and we can work on the document at the same time. So Rodney might be in New York City. I might be in Los Angeles. We can jump online and we can work together. I tend to do this also with a Zoom call so we can chat and talk about what we're doing. I've also done it in the same room as someone. So I happen to be in a conference room and we both jump in and we edit the same thing. It's a great way to work together on it. @mentioning, though, is probably the most common way I do this. I drive a lot of people nuts because I'll read a page and I'll find a typo or I'll have a question about it. And you can drop a comment right on a word or right on a sentence on a page and ask for clarification. And if you @mention them, and you'll see my name here is blue, this triggers a notification. So the little bell icon lights up and I might get an email saying, hey, Rob, Habana mentioned you here. So I also use it for reminders to myself. As I'm making a document, I might comment to myself, oh, remember to do this. Hey, go check out that other thing. So it gives us different ways of sharing information and collaborating on what's going on. And again, for that context, follow-up, questions, other things. And here is my reminder to teleport into Confluence. And I'm saying it that way because the monitor I'm looking at just went dark. So I can't actually see the screen. Oh, it's back. Whew, that was good timing. So the simplest way, again, to share content, I can just share the URL. I can click the share button, But commenting, I have a couple of options. Way at the bottom of a page, there's a comment box. I can leave a comment just on the overall page. Again, I can @mention folks. And you'll also notice I have a formatting bar in the comment. I have seen people use the comment box to like rewrite a page, to suggest massive edits, other things. I typically don't use the macros, the elements in the comment box too much. Just my habit is to leave text. But here I can just comment on the page and Rob would get that. And then I have some options. I can reply to it. I can add a reaction. I can resolve it. And if I have access, I can do things like delete it or even copy a link directly to the comment. These to me are annoying because they're hidden way down at the bottom. Like if I'm looking at this page, it's not immediately obvious to me that there's a comment way down here. So there is in my little toolbar a show comments button. And this will pull all the comments on the page. What am I clarifying, Frank? Help me understand. So this comments bar is usually how I'm looking at comments, just because the page can be hard to find them. Now my other option is called a inline comment. If I select text on the page, I'll have a comment button. And I can push this and then comment directly on just the text I selected. And this is where I drive people crazy, because I'll do this and their page ends up with all this yellow stuff all over it. And that's just visually showing where my comment is. This will also show up. And we'll see here, this one is under general comments. And this one is showing me the inline comment. The thing about comments we have to remember is we actually have to go respond to them. And this to me is where a lot of things break down. Teams will use comments, or I'll drop comments, and then people don't go into their notifications, or they don't go in and actually answer the comments. So please keep in mind, if you're using these, you might have to go nudge someone. You might have to go remind them, hey, can you go help out? Oh, gotcha, Frank. So those are comments. Comments, inline comments, collaborative editing. To edit a page, I can just click the pencil or hit the E button on my keyboard. And this is a permission. So if I don't have the permission, I won't be able to do it. But if I go up to this URL, I'll get edit somewhere in there. If I share this with another licensed user who has access, they could come in and edit it with me. So that's a great way to share it. There is also a content type just called live doc, which of course isn't turned on here. Called live doc that also allows this. Multiple people can come in here and help me publish this content. The big difference between a page and a live doc is pages aren't live, aren't published until you push publish. A live doc is instantly live. So think of this like real-time meeting notes or real-time sprint review, something you want people to see all the time immediately. All right, folks. Are we going to have a whiteboard jamboree? I'm sorry, Rodney, not in this particular training. All right, folks, that's about all I've got. Just a quick shout out to my learning courses. Check out the link. I'll drop it again in the chat. The code BEGINNER will get you 15% off any of my courses. There's a 5-hour course on everything you need to know about Confluence, or your complete guide to Confluence, but there's also other courses on other topics. So please feel free to explore that. I am also available for group training. So if you have a team who could benefit from hands-on tailored training to what you do, please feel free to reach out. My email is in the bottom left, robert@heen.tech. And I'm constantly publishing new courses. So those are paid. If finances are a challenge, reach out to me. I'll be happy to figure out something that works for you. And also everything on YouTube is free. So definitely keep checking out the YouTube channel. Habana's got a great question. Yes, all of my live sessions end up on YouTube. So if you miss them, I also do them fairly regularly. So you'll see this come up again in the cycle. But in terms of next steps, review the recording. But also look at other people's content. Look at my content. Go online, find other stuff. Go to Atlassian's website. The more exposure you can get to these things, The better better you're going to feel about using it, and the stronger you're going to be in the tool. And I'm just going to put one more poll here at the end, just to see what folks thought. What was the most interesting? Get hands-on, though. If you're using Confluence at your organization, please jump in there and start poking around. Be careful of the delete button. You might not even have access to it, but in general, you cannot hurt Confluence. So I jokingly say try to break it. Talk to your team, see if there's a safe place you can go do anything you want. But getting hands-on is really important because that'll help the concepts and ideas really get into your head. And then talk to other people at your organization. There are other folks in your exact situation who know more or less, and you can help each other out. You can share ideas. You can send them this recording. You can talk about what you want to do in Confluence. But just remember, we're not alone. It's easy to feel like we're all in isolation, and that's where trainings like this are helpful. Jumping into this Discord chat is helpful. Talking to other humans is helpful, because you'll start to see and realize there's more going on. As Rodney puts it, sandbox time. I do want to thank you all for joining me, though. I really appreciate you spending an hour of your Tuesday with me. I really enjoy this, and I really hope that some folks found this useful. And to Frank's point, if you do somehow delete something, it is not usually permanently deleted. So there is a backup just in case. That said, please be very careful about pushing the delete button, just so you don't annoy your admin too much with frequent requests to go fix things. And maybe I will quickly pop over. This is where the link to my learning courses goes, just so folks can see what it looks like. And again, a bunch of different courses. The one on Confluence is the purpley bluey one with this very good looking gentleman. But there are other topics in here that you hopefully find useful. Oop, wrong way. All right, folks. Thank you again. I'll leave the chat open for just a couple minutes, but keep the questions coming. Please keep engaging with the system. It's there to help us do our job and organize our content, not to drive us insane. So please reach out for help when you need it. Emails at the bottom. Join us in Discord, and I'll see you hopefully next time in one of these soon. All right, folks. Have a great day wherever you are, and I'll